The new Toy Story film, Toy Story 5, is coming out on June 17. Preparation for that, we're going to review all of them. We're going to rank all of them. We're going to look for the best one. I think that there's a clear front runner, and there's also probably a clear front runner for the worst one. I am going to review Lightyear, which I've never seen, but looks fucking shit. Why did they make Buzz Lightyear look like the guy from American Dad?
Here we go. I knew it was only a matter of time.
To infinity and beyond!
Let's begin. I think that this film is really quaint and innovative and has a great base and foundation for this franchise. There is a clear lack of timelessness, I would say, in this project. You can feel the project's age, you can feel the limitations of what they want to do, but probably aren't able to in the mid-90s. But with that being said, it's still really fun, it's still funny, it still is all about the kids and what will the kids enjoy about this film. What do the kids need in this film? It's not too adult, it's very focused on the childlike narrative, doesn't really have a deeper narrative. It is just there to be enjoyed as a kids film, and the arc of this film is all about identity. What's Buzz's place in the world? What's Woody's place in this world? And how can they work together to forge a path forward rather than being enemies? My least favorite element of this film is how deeply manipulative Woody is. He's outright evil for the first 40 minutes of this film, and then obviously half of the film goes over to Sid's house and he becomes a genuinely maniacal teenager.
Fuck them kids.
But for that first 40 minutes I was like, Jesus Christ, Woody is really unlikable. Obviously that changes over the course of the series, but in this one it wasn't particularly clear who you're meant to root for, because Buzz you kind of just feel bad for because he doesn't really understand the reality of his situation. Woody is just annoying, and then the other toys are kind of just there. They are kind of, at this point in Toy Story, a bit of just placeholders. This is a Buzz and Woody film. Everyone else is secondary. What is developed over the course of this franchise is the ability to make all of the characters feel alive and real. And in this film, it struggles with that. And again, part of that is the limitations on what this film has in terms of its animation and how much of the focus is placed on that new style of animation. And they build themselves into having a deeper narrative, being able to handle franchises and do more with what they are making than just having this quaint little story that Toy Story is. This is a really enjoyable film. I really love this film.
When somebody loved me, everything was beautiful.
Oh boy. I don't think I've seen this since I was maybe 10, and fuck me, is this film something else. There is something within the original trilogy that almost suggests to me that there is no point in going back and watching Toy Story 1 and 2 because they complete it. They bring together so many of the other elements from 1 and 2 into the third film. Everything that you get from 1 and 2, you get that in droves and in superdrive in the third film. With that being said, what I really appreciated about going back and watching the first film is the respect and the care and the admiration that I had for that first film because of what they were able to set up in that first film. Whilst they clearly did not have the full grasp on their abilities and they didn't understand fully what this technology could achieve, Toy Story 1 is excellent because you can see that this is the basis of something great, of something that is going to be revolutionary. In Toy Story 2, that is developed in just 4 short years.
Fuck me, that was fast.
Into being one of the best animated films ever. And I would even go as far as saying one of the best films ever. This is a film that was stuck in production hell. One of the voiceover actresses died, and then Disney, in all of their glory, as they are so often covered in, believed that this film should go straight to a TV video release rather than a theatrical release. Do not let anyone tell you that Disney is a creative company. They are not. They are morally and creatively bankrupt. They have been for about 30, 40 years. They have no grasp on what it is that anyone anyone wants from them. They just buy other companies and have those companies develop things for them. There is nothing about Disney where you can really look at them and go, oh yeah, that was really forward thinking of what Disney did there. Pixar developed the technology. Pixar used it in a way that is innovative and that is beyond anything that we had seen up to 1995. Disney tried to basically kill this film because they did not understand what they had. And thank God that somewhere in the production, they finally realized that this film is fucking excellent, that this film would be a hit. And what is so often said about Toy Story is that over the course of the trilogy, it goes from being a purely kids film into being an adult film. This film fits perfectly in the middle of that arc. This is a kids film. This is a film about what it means to be a toy. Obviously, that's what the entire trilogy is about. But more so, it is about how things do not need to go perfect in life. And that is a very, very important message for a 11, 12, 13-year-old to go. This film's message is so timeless. Things do not go perfectly, that you are not meant to be in prim and proper shape for all of your life, that you have to hit walls, you have to overcome obstacles for anything to be meaningful, is so perfect because even today you could take that message about being about technology, about being about AI, about how we don't want this toy, this Woody, to look perfect, to look the way it was in the box. We want it to have rips and tears and a child's name on the foot. We want it to have all of those things because it suggests that this toy has had a life, that it has been somewhere, and that it has given some sense of fulfillment and company to a child. It hasn't just stayed in a box, which I think is such an interesting message for a Disney film to send, is that these toys aren't for collect, they're for playing. And the film directly refutes these adult collectors that has become so much of a cottage industry and has become such a capitalistic enterprise in the 21st century. And in this film, Pixar kind of says, no, that's not what this is for. It's not for you. And as we will see in Toy Story 3, that message is kind of capped off. It's okay to leave this behind in some sense. It's okay for this to be for someone else, that you can kind of move on and gift it to the next generation. And I think that that is such a great message. The idea that aging is not a detriment. It is not a negative. It is something to learn from. It is something to take lessons from and to understand that this is a journey, not a destination. This is about change and evolution, not stasis. And this film is so great for that. One thing that I will also mention is that this is the only film in the original trilogy where Jessie as a character is centered so heavily, and the third film kind of loses that. But this film is so great because of how it utilizes Jessie, because it understands that to bring in this sympathetic character who did not have a positive experience, it expands the vision of Toy Story, and it expands the vision that not everyone has a happy start to life, but it is about where you are going, not where you have been to some extent. And this film is perfect for its utilization of Jessie in that sense. And this film to me is nearly perfect. There isn't really very much that I think is bad about this. Probably I have a few nitpicks here and there, but this is a genuine classic. This is a genuine 5 out of 5 in my opinion. And oh boy, we're about to get another one.
But I'll never get over losing you.
It brings me great pain and frustration to admit that I do actually agree with Quentin Tarantino on something, which is that this is a perfect film. You know, the guy is a real piece of work. You know, whether it be the Paul Dano stuff, his assertion that he continues to be the best director, whether it be his weird Salma Hayek foot stuff, or whether it be the fact that he continues to live in a murderous, genocidal nation where he refers to himself as a Zionist, whatever it may be, he's a real fucking piece of work. But one thing that he is correct on is that Toy Story 3 is a perfect film. Now, in my opinion, I regard 2 and 3 as being both perfect films. I just regard them as being perfect for different reasons. What 2 understands and achieves so well is that this really can be a film for both adults and children. It is not, in my opinion, a children's film or an adult film. It is both. It can kind of have that mass appeal, that broad appeal. The reason why Toy Story 3 is different is because, in my opinion, this is firmly an adult film, or at the very least a young adult film, masquerading as a child's film. The main story, the main crux of what this film is about growing up and reaching that period of your life where you're past adolescence, but you're not really into adulthood. You're not really ready to go into the big, scary world, but you're also too old to still be playing with toys, to still be doing the things that you were doing when you were 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. It's a pocket of space that has been saturated and has long been preoccupied with these dystopian young adult novels and films that don't really, in my opinion, explore something very unique in each of them. It tends to be that a lot of those films and books are quite samey, that they're all drawing from similar source material, that they're all doing and saying very similar things. But this film, for me, is in a specific pocket of space where it accesses something that is different about how it's not dangerous, but it is scary to grow up and to be an older person. But that is also necessary for the child that once was. It is necessary to grow up because you cannot stay in that sense of stasis for your entire life. That idea is something that most other films, most other directors, writers, franchises would not dare to access in the third film of a trilogy, because most other franchises go, well, we've just got to do the same thing again. We've just got to repeat the story. We've just got to make the same film again. And we just have to keep churning out films over and over again. The difference in this film is that this third film comes 11 years after the second film and 15 years after the first film. So let's say that you were born in 1990. You watched the first film when you were 5. You watched the second when you were 9. You watched the third film when you're 20. So you are directly in that pocket space where this story directly relates to you. I think probably the most mature criticism of this film is that it does not access the childlike wonder and fun of the first two films. This film, in my opinion, is markedly less fun than those first two films because it is so focused on this mature theme and storytelling. And it masters those two things. But like the story it is telling, it leaves something behind, and in doing so, it gains something else. So with this film and 2, it is really about what you want from it that will define what your favorite film is. Do you want to? You can enjoy this as an adult and you can show it to your young child and you will both enjoy it for different reasons. Or do you want the third film because you want a mature adult story? It is a matter of opinion. It is a matter of preference, in my opinion. Both of these films are excellent. Seeing the height that was reached with 2 and 3 is something that I don't really see often or connect with very often when it comes to franchise films. I don't really give a shit about most franchises. It's kind of whatever to me. But Toy Story is probably that one. More than Shrek, more than Cars, more than Star Wars, Toy Story is that one. To see a franchise, a trilogy, where every single film is so different from the last one is a feat that I think is so rarely achieved because most franchises are scared of changing themselves. And that's not even to mention the fact that whilst the theme of this film is so deeply mature, that's not to even mention the fact that the actual narrative of this film is exploring this communistic Marxist society where you are promised something and you have been drawn in by this idea of paradise, and yet when you get there it is so different from what you have been promised, and all you can really do is hope for the best and kind of return in some ways to the place that you already were without actually returning there because it has already shifted and changed what it once was and from what you knew all along. You can disagree with that message. You can think that, oh, well, actually, that's about fascism or whatever, which I think is wrong and stupid, but whatever. You can disagree with the message, but the message is there. And the storytelling of it, the craft and the production of that storytelling is unbelievable. The only thing that I can think of that really compares with it in animation is Zootopia, and the level of detail that goes into that film in tearing apart injustice and inequality in society. And it is this film in particular, in my opinion, that lays the groundwork for films like Zootopia to come after it and to take apart those ideas. This is one of the most mature animation films ever, if not the most mature. I do think that it is less fun, but it is more interesting, it is more adult, and it probably is historically still my favorite Toy Story film. But doing this series right now, it probably has slightly changed my opinion that I think that 2 probably is the best, because it threads a needle that 3 cannot and 1 cannot, which is that is the film that is most for children and adults. 1 is very firmly a kid's film. 3 is very firmly an adult's film. 2 is both. But this entire trilogy is excellent. It is my favourite franchise, and that is not to deride them. It is to say that what is in this trilogy is remarkably clear of anything else that is in animation.
I can't let you. I can't let you. I can't let you throw yourself away.
I feel like I'm going to come across as such a boomer talking about this film, because I don't have criticisms where I think it's resoundingly bad or anything. I actually think that this film is pretty good still, but I just think that there are criticisms of it that come entirely from the fact of being a fan of the first 3 films. My reflection on those being such a top tier franchise means that when I go into this film, I carry that weight with me, and so therefore my perspective on this film is so biased because I'm almost expecting you to change it to such a degree that I can't really look at this objectively. So all I can tell you is that whilst I did enjoy this film, I think that there are enough criticisms that I can probably say it doesn't work entirely for me. But that's not even because Pixar are clearly not trying, or they've gotten bored or lazy of the Toy Story franchise or anything like that. That's not true. Kind of feel that they know they need to change it after 3. That they know that if they just do the same thing again, it's not going to go well. It's not going to translate well to the audience, and there is going to be something missing of, well, I'm just watching the same film again. Or it could feel outdated for the newer fans who are looking at other films and going, well, does this really entice me the way these other films do? And so the need to change it is there. The desire and effort to change it is there, and my discrepancies with the changes are not because Pixar hasn't tried anything. It is simply that I just don't think the changes really work to make the film better, to make the franchise better. In some sense, I think it makes it worse. So, for example, some of those changes are breaking tradition at the start of the film. So in the original trilogy, all of the films starts with Andy playing with his toys. It's a setting that he's setting up with his imagination, and it kind of introduces the film. It's only there for 5 minutes, but in my opinion, it's arguably the most important or the most entertaining part of the film, and the film breaks that in order to introduce this contrivance that Bo Peep is coming back, so they have to establish what happened to her because that was never seen on screen, and that to me feels contrived. You are deliberately breaking the tradition of what came before so that you can introduce a new story element, and I'm really not a fan of that. Elsewhere, I think that the animation of this film feels too perfect, which I know is probably a bit of a paradox, but the film has a certain sheen to it. It has a glow that I'm really not a fan of. It looks very modern. It looks very 2020s. It looks like they are cleaning something from the first 3 films that doesn't need to be cleaned. But I think that that is a very modern animation problem rather than a thing specific to this film. And I think that the Pixar trajectory kind of proves that, is that a lot of the other films also look like this. I really like the character of Bonnie. I think that she's a welcome inclusion, and I think that the centering of this film on the female characters is something that is a really, really good choice. Characters of Bonnie, Gabby, Jesse, Bo Peep, so on and so forth. It's a great choice to introduce these characters. However, for me, Bonnie is in the film too much. She is in this film almost as much as Annie is in the first three, and the cast feels too bloated. You can kind of see that they felt they needed removing Woody from the main storyline in order to make it feel less bloated. However, that doesn't really solve it for me because there is still so many characters, and also Woody is returning, so presumably Toy Story 5 is still going to feel bloated to me. But I think the decision to flip the entire thing and to bring in these female characters is a really good choice. It's not, fucking woke or anything like that. It's just a change of perspective, and I really appreciate that. I really do. That being said, again, with the bloat of characters like Jessie do not get enough screen time, in my opinion. The Key and Peele teddy bear things, whatever the fuck they are, I like in terms of they're funny, and this film is arguably the funniest of the first four. But the comedy style is really strange. In the first three, it was very situational of going, look, they're toys. How could they possibly be talking? And that is the comedy. Whereas the Key and Peele stuff feels very on the nose and feels like they're trying to be deliberately comedic. They don't really serve a purpose other than that. The comedy isn't situational, so it is a break from what came before. And again, I'm just not really a fan of that. I don't go to these films because I want to laugh purely at what the characters are doing whilst they are trying to be funny. I want them to be sincere and be accidentally funny. So for example, Buzz not understanding that he is a toy. For example, Buzz talking in Spanish. These things are sincere, but they are funny. Whereas I don't find Key and Peele in this film to be sincere. I just find them to be purely comedic. But on the other hand, this is a very funny film. And one of the reasons for that is their inclusion. I do also think that with some of the blow, you can kind of see that some of the older characters aren't really given the respect that they deserved, or at the very least aren't really characterized in the same way. Chief among this is Buzz. He's sidelined, which again, if you're trying to bring in new characters and bring in this female perspective, fine, fair enough. I'm fine with that. But he's made really dumb in this film. He's made to be the butt of jokes that aren't funny to me because it is just portraying him as this moron that he clearly isn't if you watch the first three films. Yes, he can kind of be duped, the whole joke about his settings and how he's reverted back to his natural state, all that sort of stuff. But he's never dumb, at least in my opinion. And whilst this is going on, Bo Peep is basically doing a Buzz Lightyear impression of all the adventure that she goes on. But overall, there is enough here that I really like. If you aren't a diehard fan of this franchise, I could understand why you would look at 4 and go, this is a great film. I really like this. This is my favorite Toy Story film. But for me, as a deep fan of the franchise, I'm really trying to not go that hard on the film. There are issues I have with this, but it is because they are trying to change it, and they are bringing in newer audiences that want to see this new style of animation, that want to see more female characters, whilst also hoping that if they change it, whilst continuing to include characters like Buzz, Slinky, Woody, so on and so forth, that older fans, such as me, will continue to like this franchise. And there is enough here that I can say, I'm with you, but you kind of need to prove it better than this. This is not a bad film by any means. I really enjoy it. I think it's funny. I think it's got a lot of heart. There's characters in this that I really, really do like. But this is the worst Toy Story, at least in my opinion. If I was going to try and be generous to it, it's probably better than 1, just because 1 has aged quite a lot, and I can respect the need to change it and the fact that they have clearly put in a lot of effort to make that change work. I'm not sure that a lot of those changes work for me personally. But there's one more film. Let's get on to that.
To infinity and beyond!
I really am struggling to understand who thought this film was a good idea. Jesus Christ, this is rough. I really do not have very much to say about this film that is positive. I'm a big fan of cats, so I will start off with some positivity, which is that the cat is really fucking cool.
Meow, 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 meow.
Big fan of the humor that comes through the cat. However, what I talked about in Toy Story 4 is that the animation style had changed. The animation change is even more evident in this film, and I'm even less of a fan of it. At this point, it doesn't feel like a change so much as a downright devolution of the style. The main takeaway from this film is that the very basis of this film, this film starts by telling you that in 1995, a film came out called Lightyear, and that film inspired a child called Andy to get a toy, and this is that film. In what world is this film cool, charismatic, coded for a young boy to enjoy? In what world is this film any of those things? Because what is the main takeaways from Buzz Lightyear in the Toy Story series? He's cool, charismatic, he's kind of goofy, but he is a loyal friend who always sees his missions through to the end, which invariably means helping out his friends. This character is so far divorced from that character, I can in no way connect them. And apparently during production, that is what they wanted. They wanted the character to feel entirely different. I can't understand why you would ever think that that is a good thing. I can't understand changing the voice of Tim Allen to Chris Evans. I can't understand any of these decisions. The film is uncool. It is completely disconnected. It is something completely fresh and new, and yet a complete failure. This film does not work on any level. That goes for things like the dialogue, which is such Marvel dialogue that I audibly cringed and in 15 minutes was ready to turn this film off because they make the same stupid joke about 5 times. Ugh, autopilots. I don't care. I don't care. It's not funny. It wasn't funny the first time. It wasn't funny the 7th time you said it. So stop saying the joke. But the film doesn't understand what it's trying to do, in my opinion. It can't grasp the character of Lightyear because it does not care about the character of Lightyear. And also, it cannot grasp the idea of what we would possibly want from a Toy Story spin-off film, which is that, one, I don't really want a Toy Story spin-off film anyways. But if I did, I would surely want it to be closer to Toy Story than this. And yet this is so far removed. It is so uncool. It's so boring. And ultimately, the main question about this is, in what world would any child find this film cool? It's dull, lifeless, and this is quite clearly the worst of the Toy Story films. Which brings us on to, what is my rank? This film, obviously, of the 5, is the worst. No question about it, in my opinion. After that, 4 is Toy Story 4. Don't think that this is a bad film. Just don't really connect with it. Don't really like a lot of the changes, but it's still clearly got a lot of effort behind it, got a lot of talent. In moments, I find it quite funny. I find it quite sweet. I like a lot of the characters. Not a bad film. Not my favourite, though. In 3rd, I would put Toy Story 1. I could understand why people would probably put Toy Story 4 above 1, but for me, the foundation and the base and the innovation of 1 is more respectable than the change and evolution of 4. It's a great film, but it's not a film that I feel incredibly drawn to go and rewatch a lot of the time, because the films after it do it so much better. And that is to say that number 1 and number 2 I have quite tied. I think that this comes down to a matter of preference, and right now I would say that my preference is that in number 2 I would have Toy Story 3, and number 1 I would have Toy Story 2. This is completely interchangeable in my opinion. I think that both of these films are exceptional and are both perfect films, which is so rare to say for any franchise, is that you've got 2 perfect films. So I can't say any more about these 2 films that I have not already said, because they are exceptional. They are comedic, they are dramatic, they are sad, they are happy, they are everything in between. They are adventure films, they are horror films, they are heist films, westerns, so on and so forth. It has everything that you would possibly want, and I really hope that we're going to get more of that from Toy Story 5. But that's the end of this video. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. Bye.